Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today, and we're getting off on the right foot because you just made a reference before we started recording to your favorite Dreamcast game. The Dreamcast, young people, was a video game system from my childhood that I was fond of. I can't believe you played a Dreamcast.
I just told the whole crew that I was really a video game fan. I played Shenmue. I played.
I know what that
back
is.
in the day. What was it called? Barracuda.
Power Stone was the game I loved.
What's the one? Parappa the Rapper. That was one of my favorite games
yes,
too.
I remember these things. These
We
are
can go down-
millennial terms.
Yes, we might be getting old now.
We are getting old, but
Oh,
I
man.
just love the video games of my childhood.
It brought up so much nostalgia. It put me in a happy mood.
I'm trying really hard right now to play this hacked version of the Zelda games for Nintendo 64, where the items in it are randomized, but you have to like download it, and I think you have to steal it on Tor. You know how we used to steal music?
Yeah,
It's
like
too
Napster.
complicated for me to do it. I was trying to get AI to explain it to me. I can't figure it out.
Well, let me know if you figure out. I might try it.
Okay.
But coming up on Rising,
Yeah,
CBS
anyway.
is denying Stephen Colbert's claim that the network pulled his interview with Democratic Texas Senate candidate James Tallarico, saying that they only provided the show with legal guidance over the FCC's equal rule time.
I'll have a lot to say on that, believe me. Plus, a Trump administration official is calling out former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie in a battle over prediction markets and who gets to regulate them.
And President Trump and Governor Wes Moore are clashing over the response to the sewage spill in the Potomac River. Very frustrating. But first, Robby, what's in your radar?
Well, another day, another semi-deranged conversation on the Abby Phillips Show on CNN. This time, Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary set Tezlyn Figaro, a progressive political commentator, straight on matters of criminal justice and American history. The conversation was about a legitimate news subject, a judge's decision to restore an exhibit about slavery at Independence National Historic Park in Philadelphia. And that's all good by me. I agree we should teach real history of the U.S., not some sanitized version. I've been clear on that for years. In this country, the realities of slavery and the Civil War are taught and should be taught to children. We already do a good job of that, I think, in most schools throughout the U.S. But if you have ideas for how we can do it even better, I'm all ears. But it sounds to me like it's Figaro herself who needs a history lesson. Listen to her and O'Leary arguing.
It's so interesting that you said that, because right before we went to break, you asked me what country was I living in. This one that we just went through.
You should be
the country
happy to
that
live
did
here.
the country that just did what they did. So for you to sit here and act like you just didn't say, what country are you talking about? What country, puts people in jail wrong? What country enslaves folks, which is pretty much the private prison system? What country does this? You can't possibly be a history buff and also say that as well.
Did you catch that? The lefty was arguing that there is slavery in the U.S. today, not 200 years ago, but presently, because of the private prison system. And I'm sorry, but that's just totally made up. And it's fine to oppose private prisons as a matter of policy, of course, but private prisons are just prisons that are administered privately. The people incarcerated there are people who have gone through or are going through the criminal justice system. Private prisons don't just abduct people off the streets or something. They incarcerate people at the behest of state prosecutors and state police. You know what countries do imprison hundreds and thousands of people unjustly? Let's name them. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. You notice what wasn't on that list? The United States. O'Leary, of course, followed up with this exact point.
Let me give you how bad it can be. The Romans used to burn to the
You
ground.
can't never
and
give me how bad it
salt
could be.
The
You
earth.
could never give me how bad it could be. I live it on
That
a
was
daily
bad.
basis,
The
baby.
Romans
I
were
live it
pretty
on a
bad.
daily basis, honey.
They were bad
I
dudes.
live it on a daily basis. You can never tell me how bad it could be. But I would encourage you to actually be the history buff that you claim that you are,
Well, where
and
do you
really
wanna
get some
move to?
understanding. It's not about me. I'm not going nowhere. I'm staying right here.
think the question
You don't need to give me no visa to China.
Kevin, I
I'm a
think the
veteran. I'm
question
staying
here
right
would
here.
be,
Now, just because there are other much worse countries out there, it doesn't mean we have to refrain from criticizing the U.S. at all. Moreover, it certainly doesn't mean that we should refrain from criticizing the federal government. But there is a certain kind of left progressive commentator who seems to view America as uniquely bad, uniquely broken, uniquely flawed on a historical scale. But ours is a great nation that saved humanity from the scourges of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, defeated the Soviet Union, one of the most oppressive and carceral regimes in the history of the world, without firing a direct shot. This is a country that works to counteract Islamic authoritarianism and undermines the new threats posed by China and Russia. So how about a little enthusiasm and appreciation for the greatness of America? maybe liberals could lean into a positive message if they want to win elections ever again.
So I know anybody with a criticism in your book gets labeled a liberal, but let me paint the Tezlyn picture a little better for you. She's an independent and former veteran of our country. Yeah, she went around making everybody thank her for her service, which I found quite
that is appropriate.
Yeah, fine, appropriate. So she was explaining
her for that.
No, they were having a conversation about the fact that you can criticize this country without saying the worst of the worst is what we're comparing it to. She's holding our country to the standards of freedom, the standards that we've set through our Constitution for all people. And so she's allowed to be critical of that. And when you bring in the prison system,
we have slavery here in the
well,
US.
let me break it down. Have you watched 13th by Ava DuVernay? It's a really good documentary that you should about the 13th Amendment and how prison labor is compared to slave labor is because it's forced working with no pay. Well, let me finish. It's minimal pay, pennies on the dollar, no oversight. So people are automatically exposed to situations where they're getting taken advantage of, regardless of the crime, right? They're still out there working for free. Many private businesses are profiting from this work, and that causes an incentive to keep more people in jail to keep these companies running. Now, this creates a financial back and forth and incentive for these companies, but also has historical and racial links. So if you look at many present-day prison systems, they're on the same land as former slave plantations. So let's talk about Angola in Louisiana. Let's talk about Parchment in Mississippi. So there's a lot of conversation about the same people that were working on these plantations that was actual slavery now has prison laborers that are benefiting private companies working on the same lay of land for pennies or nothing because our criminal justice system allows that and really enhances that. So that's a conversation.
My understanding is that, and I don't know, I've never been to prison, but my understanding is that a whole lot of people who are imprisoned are glad there is work to do because being in prison can be very boring. And no, I mean, like exhaustively boring.
But what dialogue have you had, and what study shows people are glad to work for free?
They are glad to have their time occupied in some way. I'm sure not everyone is, but there are a lot of people in prison like, oh my God, sign me up for some kind of work duty because I'm going to go bored out of my mind. That's
the whole point of the 13th Amendment is that slavery was involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime. This is exactly what the 13th Amendment is talking about. Punishment for a crime is working for free? No, it should be go to jail, like you said.
No person can be deprived of life, liberty, and without due process of the law. They've had due process.
Right, and now companies are benefiting from this free labor, which is the same thing companies were benefiting from the free labor of slaves. And that is the comparison. Whether you disagree or agree is up to you, but the comparison from a veteran, somebody who obviously loves the country because they're going to put their life on the line, it's fair for her to suggest. I mean, there's docuseries about this topic, about the fact that maybe that's not the way to get somebody reintegrated into society when they leave jail, is to have them work for free and then be released from prison. And then the recidivism rate is really high. So it really doesn't help that they had gotten to work.
Not having them work and is not going to be...
Have them read books. Have them go to church, Robbie. There's a lot of things that they can do in prison.
Good with all that too.
Right. But working for private companies, you see the benefit.
Prisons that are not administered privately also have work duties for prisoners. So it's not unique to the private.
But I think that besides that, we could argue about prison and how comparative it is to slavery. But the fact that when you criticize the country, and Kevin O'Leary, as you know, is a friend of mine. Yeah. I've interviewed him multiple times, and I don't have a problem with him. We disagree on a lot politically. I do think that it's fair for somebody to say, I'm going to be very critical and hold my country to a high standard because that's the country that we live in. That's made America what it is today. Because people have challenged when it's not living up to the Constitution.
I think it's going, okay.
And so she's allowed to do that. And you can't go back and say, well, China's worse, go over there. What is that?
No, my bottom line is it's going too far to say the U.S. has slavery in the country today. That's going too far. And if you're going to say that, then you can't even reserve that term. China and our foreign adversaries do practice, I wouldn't use the word slavery well, exactly, they're doing mass political persecution and imprisonment of dissidents. So we have to reserve those terms for our adversaries because what they're doing is so much worse, like a 10 times worse scale. So we can't say that about us because then what do we even have left to say about them? Because what they're doing is worse.
I know, but our bottom line is not what China's doing. Our bottom line is living up to our Constitution. We shouldn't be saying, well, China's worse. Like, their bottom line could be underground. And that doesn't mean we have to match it and say, oh, we're higher. That doesn't mean we're doing well in certain areas.
We should have pride on how much better we are than China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, etc. CBS is denying that it had a hand in pulling an interview segment from Stephen Colbert's show after outrage swept across left-leaning circles. We'll be right back.